how to mix a little bebop jazz into your blues lines with this very cool, very useful 1-4 transition lick. A 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, a close look at the fretboard, getting started with a quick mini lesson on how you can get that jazzy sound in your blues licks, specifically when you're playing over top of a 1-4 chord progression. Okay, so those changes would be in the key of B, a B7 chord shape. You can play it as a bar, or you can thumb it. And the 4 chord, E7, or you can play it as an E9 chord shape. So first, let's learn those shapes. I've got my thumb on the 7th fret of the E string, my index on the 7th fret of the D string, my middle finger on the 7th fret of the B string, and my ring finger on the 8th fret of the G string. Okay, a very useful, very quick way of fretting a 7th chord, in this case, a B7 chord. Alright, the next one's essential for playing blues and jazz. Okay, this is the 9 chord shape. So I've got the 7th fret of the A string, the 6th fret D, and my ring finger barred across the 7th fret of the G string, B string, and the high E string. Every single 9 chord in the book. Okay, so once again, the lick's gonna sound like this, real slow, starting from the 1 chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and at full speed, so you can get the vibe of it, it's gonna sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so at faster speeds, you kind of got to sweep pick it, and we'll get into that. But first, let's understand the inner workings, the kind of theory behind this lick, so that way you can recreate it and just kind of have a basic understanding of how many jazz licks work. So basically what's happening here is we're playing over top of this B7 chord shape, right? And we're basically using a B7 arpeggio. Okay, that would sound like this, very plain. Okay, but we're doing something to it that is very, very jazzy, something that you see in so many different jazz licks. We're replacing the root for the minor second, okay, which is just a half step up. And that adds a little bit of tension to it and makes it sound a lot more interesting. Okay, so the basic arpeggio is 7, 9, switching to the G string, 8, the B string, 7, then grabbing that dominant 7 of the chord, the 10th fret of the B string, and then back to the root note on the high E string, 7th fret. Okay, so the intervals that we're playing there are the flat 7, the root, the major 3rd, the 5th, the flat 7 again, and then back to the root again. Okay, so if you play that arpeggio, it has a little bit of a bluesy sound, but generally it's very plain. Now, if we replace the root notes, all these B notes, for what we call the upper neighbor, okay, a half step up, it's going to sound way more jazzy, it's going to have a lot more tension, it's going to be much more interesting. Okay, so we did it to both of those root notes. Just replacing the root note for the upper neighbor, also known as the minor second. Such a very cool, very useful, jazzy concept to add into your blues playing. Okay, very good everybody. You've got the prerequisite chords down, that B7, that E9, and you understand now that playing the dominant 7 arpeggio can be made much more jazzy by replacing the root notes for the minor second, using that upper neighbor. Okay, if you understand those concepts, then you're ready to learn this lick in its entirety. Once again, it sounds like this real slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and a 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4. Okay, breaking that lick down, I'm going to put the tab on the screen, but remember you can always print these tabs out at patreon.com/Swiftlessons. Okay, so as you can see in our tab, we have 2 measures of the B7 chord shape before going to the 4-chord E9. And the majority of the lick is taking place over top of that second measure of B7. But we're starting off on the last 8th note of measure 1 on the 7th fret of the D string. Okay, from there we're going up to that minor second, also known as the upper neighbor, 10th fret of the D string, then to the 8th fret of the G, 7th fret B, and then to the B string 10th fret. All right, then grabbing another upper neighbor on the 8th fret of the high E string, pulling off down 1/2 step to the root note, 7th fret of the high E string. That's a good place to stop and practice. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and a 2 and 3. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and a 2 and 3. All right, then we're back to the 10th fret of the B string. All right, from here, we're going to start our transition to the 4-chord E9, and we're going to make use of another really important jazz concept, a walk-up to a chord tune. All right, so we're on the 7th fret of the B string, going up to 8, and then finally we're going to slide up to the 9th fret of the B string, which is the major third inside of a plain garden variety E major bar chord shape. Okay, so very often the chord tones are what lead the way in terms of constructing your licks. Okay, you add that into the mix and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. All right, from there we're just going to arpeggiate the basic E major triad, 7th fret high E string, back to the 9th fret of the B string, and then to the G string 9th fret. Okay, now real quick, let's talk about the picking technique. In order to play this fast, you're going to need to implement something that we call a rest stroke technique. Okay, so it starts off alternating, down, up. But here, on the G string is where we're going to start our rest stroke. We pluck that string, and just let the pick fall down onto the B string, where it's ready for the next pluck. All right, then from there, it's going to be alternating, mixing in the pull off and also the slide. Just like that. Okay, so that rest stroke technique is really important for being able to get to that next level in terms of speed. Okay, great work today, everybody. Practice that lick nice and slow, get it into your muscle memory, and remember, speed is a very gradual process. Start off slow, make sure that you're counting and singing along, so that way you're also getting a little bit of ear training in. A 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, if you can do that, then the next step would be to see if you can add in the rhythm. A 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4. All right, from there, as a final stop, you want to see if you can play it elsewhere on the fretboard. Change the key, maybe a whole step down. Key of A. A 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, take that up and down the fretboard, and then also see if you can play along to some backing tracks. I hope you enjoyed this lesson.